Down with the coup d'etat is what these Haitian protesters are chanting. After the release of final presidential election results, massive protests all over the Caribbean nation have flared. Protesters denounce reports of fraud and call the election an electoral coup d'etat. Coming out ahead to move on to a runoff in December were two candidates, sitting President Michel Martelly's party candidate Juvenel Moïse and former head of the previous government's construction ministry Jude Celestin, who was supported by Haitian musician Wyclef Jean. Despite most likely entering into the next round, Celestin recently held a press conference denouncing the results of the vote and calling it a fraud.
Parce que grand pile bagay drôle qui passe en dedans. Nous dénoncer, nous dit que gen des boîtes qui entrer le soir, transportées par responsable qui entrer dans porte archive là. Yo pas occupé nous. Résultat sans pied ni tête là, tombé côté que tout candidat perdu sauf un candidat qui lui-même gagné et qui satisfait du résultat.
The top 8 contesting candidates are calling for an independent body to review the election results. Their main point of contention is with political party observers, also known as mandateurs. During the October 25th election, reports found that mandateurs were selling their entrance cards to enter into polling stations. A survey from the Brazilian Igarape Institute interviewed more than 1,800 voters in 135 centers throughout the country. It revealed a vastly different voting pattern than official results. The governing party's candidate, Juvenel Moïse, only received 6.9% of the vote, a stark difference from the official results of 32.8% of the vote. Union spokesperson DJ Dominique says this fraud allowed members from mostly the ruling party, PHTK, to enter stations and vote multiple times.
More than 50% of the people are false people. I vote once and again with another mandat from another party that I bought and I vote with it. And so it's a complete false number of people voting, and it's a complete false number of people voting for PHTK who bought the majority of the mandat.
But what has the international community had to say about these reports? The Washington-based Organization of American States, also known as OAS, has not recognized the validity of these accusations. Instead, they observed the election results announced by the Electoral Council to be, quote, consistent with what the OAS mission observed on October 25th. The United States has neither condemned or applauded the official results. Some critics speculate it's because of their now revealed role in the last presidential election in 2010. A FOIA request revealed that in the last election, the Haitian private sector and the American government were working together to ensure that current presidential candidate Jude Celestin did not enter the second round of elections back in 2010. In an email between then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills and America's ambassador to Haiti Kenneth Merton, Merton wrote, quote, Boulos and private sector have told RP, Rene Preval, that Celestin should withdraw. They would support RP staying till the 7th of February. This is big. At an event in Washington last month, Merton was asked about America's silence in this election. He said, quote, we're in a damned if you do, damned if you don't position. This is a Haitian election. We can't say the elections were great and the outcome was perfect because we don't know yet. It would be premature for us, in my view, to prejudge this election as terrific or awful until we see this process run its course. But Center for Policy and Research associate Jake Johnson says America's silence is clearly benefiting the Martelly administration.
There was good reason to criticize the role of the international community in 2010 for intervening and overturning the results of that election. And it's sort of interesting that the tables have largely been turned. And the silence this time is sort of taken as tacit approval of whatever's happened in the election, which obviously has benefited the government.
Benefiting not just the Haitian government, but the American government as well. Dominique says America's economic interest is to continue the spread of unregulated free trade zones under the Martelly administration.
They want the continuity, in fact. So the whole international community say very good, very well, very good elections, their goals and their projects, which is the free trade zone, agricultural zone, mines, and tourism. They say it clear.
America has been largely silent to reports of fraud as well as intimidation tactics by the Haitian National Police. The Real News spoke with Dr. Tony Voltaire, who is a physician at a communal hospital in the northern department of Haiti. He says he's directly experienced intimidation from the deputy who represents Martelly's party. They have attempted to take over resources from the hospital, which runs as a non-profit.
On a des choses comme ça. Dernièrement, là, ils ont décidé d'aller dans le centre de santé que nous avons un petit bout de Boy Bertrand. Ils ont intimidé tout le monde avec ZAM. Et puis, ils ont même lagué gaz lacrymogène. C'est un gaz qui est vraiment létal, bon, du moins qui est dangereux. Donc, c'est toute situation ça que nous vivons dans le moment. La population pas doit manifester. Ou après Port-au-Prince, ils ont bravé le danger pour manifester. Mais dans la commune, dans la petite commune, il ne faut pas manifester au bord gaz lacrymogène. Les mêmes qui vont plus loin. Si il y a entre 5 à 10 personnes qui campent dans une zone, côté, même si il n'y a aucune mauvaise intention, il y a déjà lâché gaz lacrymogène pour permettre qu'ils dispersent.
This level of intimidation by the Haitian National Police has been largely supported by the United Nations peacekeeping force, MINUSTA, as well. Now the top 8 candidates want changes to Haiti's police department and the Electoral Council. Otherwise, they are calling for a transitional government to oversee new general elections. But Dominique says that this election and the ensuing conflict does not represent a fight for everyday people's voices, but rather a clash between competing elite interests.
They have contradictions between them. The elections first will try to resolve those contradictions and give the one who will emerge legitimacy. But none of them is really a popular candidate or even near. We have to organize a whole organization structured to end with this system and this imperialist domination, and above all the occupation which is against us now.
A runoff on December 27th is scheduled, but the question remains whether Haitians will come out to vote. For the first round of the presidential election, according to the Brazilian Observer's report, only 20% of registered voters voted in the capital. And after the election results came out, only 5% of respondents agreed with the statement that their vote counted. For the Real News Network, Jessica Devereaux, Washington.
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankongo and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, whose spirit and sacrifice. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
Let no religious scruples, no political machination divide us, but let us hold together under all climes and in every country, making among ourselves a racial empire upon which the sun shall never set. Your first allegiance shall be to your God, then to your family, race, and country. But when your God and your Savior look like your master and your enslaver, you become the principal agent in your destruction. Uncle Jocelyn, we're Africans not because we were born in Africa. We're Africans because Africa was born in us. Because in the words of our elder ancestor Malcolm X, we must recapture our heritage and our identity if we are to liberate ourselves from the bonds of white supremacy. We must launch a cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people. Culture is an indispensable weapon in the struggle for freedom. So our aim defending ourselves against cultural terrorism. And those who would preside over cultural terrorism and the institutions that will sanction cultural terrorism and imperialism. So we're with Steve Biko, you know, when he says that when a black man starts to have a cup of tea with a white man, he will start to misrepresent his people. And white people, you might not notice that. But think about it. Think about it, because it happens when you sit with Africans, with black people, and you are best friends and you're having a cup of tea, especially where there is a power dynamic, that you find that you don't have to do anything because he will start to misrepresent his people. Part of that has to do with the cultural terrorism that we're talking about, so that when we become them who are doing what they have been destined to do, which is to destroy and to war, that when we become them, we are our own worst enemies. And cultural terrorism has been the tool used by the imperialists and the colonizers and neo-colonizers to ensure that black people become tools of their own destruction. So cultural terrorism and imperialism through miseducation, religion, especially European and Eurocentric Christianity, and Turkish Islam. So we continue our series In Search of Our God, African Spiritual Systems, the Kemetic or Egyptian Mystery System, looking at African sacred science. Professor James Smalls will be my very special guest this morning by phone. We join him live. He's in the United States. Professor James Small is a priest of Oya, Babalorisha, Ifa tradition, of the ancient Kemetic Masonic Lodge, Vice President of the World African Diaspora Union, CEO of Sanaa Lodge Enterprise, Ghana Limited. He's also a former lecturer in African spiritual systems, at City University of New York, has lectured widely across the world, across the globe, conducts annual study trips to the continent of Africa, and in particular to Kemet, to Egypt. Author, father, and a brother. One of the foremost authorities on African spiritual systems. He joins me this morning. Something tells me that we're going to be having a part 2 to this discussion with Professor Small. We had an unexpected visitors who were members of a Sailors Hole Benevolent Society who came here because this has been the space in which we have been trying to ensure that justice is done in the attempt by the state to develop Sailors Hole or Fisherman's Beach. The fishermen and the fisher folk on the beach were under threat of being evicted without due diligence and without proper compensation or without proper consideration of how they fit into the wider picture of this development that's happening along the coast here in Ocho Rios. So we've been talking about that. They formed a benevolent society and picking up on what the Winifred Beach folks did in forming that benevolent society and getting a form of justice. Now, from all indications, it would appear as if there is some kind of, well, let us say there's a controversy. I do not understand it myself. We've been trying to get to the bottom of this. My broadcast assistant, Shamara Preston, has been talking to the people, the stakeholders, the people involved, and we do have a clip from the UDC chairman, KD Knight. Interestingly enough, last week we tried to call Mr. KD Knight when the fisher folk turned up here, and when we did get him on the phone, he said then, the message he sent back then was that it was too early in the morning. That was after 9 o'clock. It's interesting how the custodians and those who we have chosen to hold in trust for us our resources, how they treat us. I mean, I am at a loss that we continue to take it, and so we have to own part of the blame for the condition in which we find ourselves, because at some point, righteous indignation must kick in. At some point, we must find ourselves and understand ourselves enough to say, enough is enough. We're sick and tired of being disrespected. We're sick and tired of being excluded. We're sick and tired of being treated just as numbers for votes. We're sick and tired of being oppressed by a system that has no heart, and individuals within that system who are even more heartless. So that the chairman of the UDC sent a message back to say it was too early in the morning, and that right there tells us what they think of us, the masses of the Jamaican people. In any case, we tried to get Mr. KD Knight just the same, and second thing he said was that he didn't, and my broadcast assistant tells me that he doesn't do interview on Sunday mornings. I'm gonna have to sit down with her, look at her while she tells me that, because she told me that on the phone. And so I said to her, go ahead then and get a comment from him on his take on the grouses that we're hearing coming from the fisher folk on Fisherman's Beach at Sailors Hole, that a deal was signed, an agreement was signed on Friday, November 27, between the UDC, the Urban Development Corporation, well, it's among, because we have more than two, the Urban Development Corporation, the Port Authority of Jamaica, and the Sailors Hole Benevolent Society, which represents the fisher folk, and that the fisher folk will receive $75 million in compensation, and this will be split among 80 fisher folk. So those who came here were concerned that they heard on the news that this agreement was signed, and they felt betrayed. So we have that response for Mr. KD Knight. In focus this morning, well, two things. One, first is that China has begun military colonization of Africa. It was always going to happen, and we've been saying this. I am not surprised, not in the least, not surprised. We're going to hear much, much more, because the Africans have not critically, and the leaders of Africa, including the African Union, have not critically examined their relationship between China and the relationship between China and themselves. And leveraging that relationship hasn't been happening in the way that it could happen. So that now the military colonization, after the process of economic colonization, because that is well underway. And let me tell you also about the social social imperialism and social terrorism that is happening on the continent of Africa. China has begun its military colonization. China is not the only country or the only superpower to be actively engaged in that process of military colonization of the continent of Africa. There is America, the US, obviously Europe, and in particular France. The military colonization of Djibouti in particular. Just to look at that, take a snapshot of that, and it makes you afraid. For Africa and for us as African people. Because as I've said before many times in this space, the Angola model has not been only rolled out on the continent of Africa or in Angola for that matter. As a matter of fact, the Angola model was perfected in Angola. And so, but out of that, the imperialism is in full flight. That is China, because remember that we've had Europe doing the very same thing. The US has come in and done the very same thing, and now actively in this process of colonization, military colonization, France, the US, and now China. Djibouti is ground zero for that military colonization.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
The essence of power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them live according to that definition as though it is a definition of their own choosing.
Just gather the souls to the corners of the earth. Teach us some more about humility. Oh, can't we see? We've denied ourselves our blessings. In this time we learned our lessons that we should serve the Almighty.
shine on light. If you are get tanga tanga, jamano jamano, nyati nyala, kevi kono pota. Daddy me, papa mayo, namida jamima. Any more nabi African, you're not Africans unite.
What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself, and what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself, and what you know of yourself depends on what you have been told.
As we go in search of our God,
one day we turn our heads,
understanding that African people, black people, we are the first manifestation of God in human flesh. That we understand. even as we lead the search. Thank you so much for all your comments over the last week, or the past few weeks since we started this feature, this series, In Search of Our God. There have been many comments and it's split right down the middle. Those of you who think the time has come for us to begin to do this search, and for those of you who are pretty upset that we would dare to go searching for something or someone that is not lost, that so many have found in the personalities of so many different persons and so many different ideas and concepts.
One day we turn our heads.
So thank you so much for all the comments. My only request is that we keep them civil, because I have no problem at all with disagreements and comments that people would view as negative comments, because it's a balance. And what makes us our better selves is when we're able to use the conflict to engage in discussions, in conversations that can make us better people. So let's do this. And thank you. Keep the comments coming. I appreciate them.
So today, my brothers in Haiti, to pay the price.
Bookman's invocation to the Haitian Revolution. The God of the white man inspires him to crime. But our God, who is good to us, orders to revenge our wrongs. He will direct our arms and aid us. Throw away the image of the white man's God and listen to liberty, which speaks in all our hearts. Bookman's invocation to the Haitian Revolution. Our elder ancestor Bobby Wright called for the creation of an African worldview through the development of a black social theory. These are words and part of finding ourselves, including understanding ourselves as a first manifestation of God in human flesh. What might that thinking and how might that thinking change our attitudes? How might that impact what we think of ourselves as a race, as a people? Haiti is the only country in the world where enslaved Africans liberated themselves by overthrowing their enslavers. A powerful symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope to end slavery everywhere. The ceremony, of course, led by Bookman Doty. Selected by Manbo Fatimon to lead the uprising.
I'm sorry. We misunderstood you.
So as we go in search of our God, examining the African spiritual systems, we also understand that the larger struggle is a war of liberation from the tyranny of the culture of Western civilization. Of course, as Jacob Taruda said, with his Siamese twin. White supremacy. Let's not forget that. It's a triplet, you know. White privilege.
Haiti, I'm sorry. Pardon, pardon. Haiti, I'm sorry. Pardon, Haiti, pardon, pardon. One day we'll turn restore your glory. Haiti, I'm sorry.
A song written about and is done about the apartheid system in South Africa and the process of exclusion of Africans on the continent of Africa. A song that is now the theme song for looking at our own conditions here in Jamaica and the apartheid-like conditions that we ourselves now face as our beaches, as a coastline is privatized and as access is denied on many different levels to ordinary Jamaican. And they don't want us to question that because our system is one of detachment to stop the oppressed people from asking questions. But we must question that.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
All right, we're standing by to speak with the Sailors Hold Benevolent Society representatives, who we're expecting to be in the studio in a minute now. In the meantime, in focus now, you know, we've been looking at the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. Well, the good news coming out of that last week, remember the report was the government, the Guyana government, had wrapped up the Commission of Inquiry saying that overspending occurred, and after the election, new government, and so they scrapped that. And the commissioners were given until last week, Monday, to present their report. Well, sometime over, just before Monday, the commissioners were given an extra 2 weeks to present their report. And so that December 15, I think, is the next date. Professor Wazir Mohammed, has told us that the press reports coming out of Guyana suggest that the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry were given 2 more weeks to complete and submit its report on the bomb blast death of the Guyanese historian and politician 34 years ago. And Sunday, remember we spoke with Wazir Sunday morning? Well, Sunday night, this announcement was made by the Prime Minister, Moses Nagamuto. He spoke to Demerara Waves Online News and said he was aware that a request was made by one of the commissioners for an extension, and that now they have, and I quote the Prime Minister, he says, "I am aware of a decision made that the inquiry, that they have to submit their report by the 15th of December. Prime Minister Nagamuto could not say whether this period would allow for public hearings to be held for key witnesses to testify, in keeping with a group named Justice for Walter Rodney Committee. And I quote, he said, no, I can't comment beyond that. I'm just saying that I'm aware of. I don't know what they would do. All right, so that's the latest on the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry. Now, we've been talking about this. China has begun military colonization of Africa with the first ever overseas army base at Key Oil checkpoint. In focus now, this military colonization is not to be taken lightly. And the fact that the military base is going to be located in Djibouti is even more of an interesting fact. Djibouti is hardly in the news since the 1990s. We haven't heard much about Djibouti. But take your maps out or Google Djibouti. And just check to see exactly where it is, because interestingly enough, Djibouti, you will see, is one of the key strategic locations in the Horn of Africa. It is currently home to Africa's largest U.S. Army base. Africa's largest U.S. Army base. So the largest United States of America Army base on the continent of Africa under AFRICOM and the militarization of Africa is in Djibouti. Do you know how many thousands of people we're talking about? I'm talking about military people. It is also, Djibouti is also the location of France's biggest foreign legion deployment. So the biggest foreign legion deployment that France has anywhere is in Djibouti. the largest U.S. Army base on the continent of Africa is in Djibouti. And now, continuing the process of colonization, China has based its first, and we can say at this point largest on the continent of Africa, army base is about to in Djibouti. So the United States, France, and also Japan. Japan has one of its largest bases, also military bases, in Djibouti, in this tiny African country. I'm gonna ask you to do something. Google it, get a map of Africa, find Djibouti. It is in the Horn of Africa, just straddling at the gateway of the Red Sea, guarding the Canal de Suez. Right in between Yemen and them. Think about it. Do you recall that just the other day when we had that artificial war in Yemen, when Yemen was being bombed to pieces, and we heard all kinds of stories as to why this has happened? Do you recall the principal players in Yemen? And do you remember that when hundreds of foreign workers were stranded in Yemen, that it was China? Because France said it couldn't get its people out of Yemen, and it was just next door to Yemen. The United States couldn't get its people out of Yemen, and China just waltzed in there with its large army ship and large army and took out over 400 Chinese workers and over 400 or 200 other foreign nationals. Do you remember that maneuver by China? Do you think that that was just for show? China had not at that time announced that it wanted to, or that it was planning to set up an army base in Djibouti, which was just across the water, just next door. So what are we to make of this? What are we to make of what's happening in Djibouti with all these foreign powers stationed there in a military colonization? France has thousands of troops. France has warships, aircraft, and armored vehicles. Thousands of troops, warships, aircraft, armored vehicles in Djibouti. The US, the very same. China coming with the same thing. Japan, the very same. In this tiny African country. The military colonization of Africa is well underway. And let's look at Djibouti. You would think, with all these army bases in Djibouti, you would think that at least it would be looking like Dubai. This is where they would say they want to go, by the way. They want to make Djibouti a Dubai in Africa. 42% of local Djiboutians live in extreme poverty. This is according to the latest figures from 2014, last year. 42% of local Djiboutians live in extreme poverty. 48% of the labor force is unemployed as at 2004. What are we to make of China's military colonization of Africa? Well, take your map out. What are we to make of the militarization of Africa by AFRICOM? We have dealt with that many times. Many times. We've also spoken about France. We need to pay some more attention to that. And now China. Haven't paid much attention to Japan in Africa either, but we need to do that. Because they have taken their wars, their Cold Wars, to the continent of Africa. And they're going to do the very same thing in the Caribbean. Already, through the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, America has a headway in partnership with Europe, by the way, in the militarization of the Caribbean waters. China will get involved in that very soon. There's no way to go from there but there, in response also to China's inroads in Cuba. China's been in Cuba forever. So Guantanamo Bay is not the be-all and the end-all of it in this region, but China, we have to look to Cuba and look to Jamaica to see where the military base is going to be and how the Chinese army will soon be making its way to Jamaica, to the Caribbean. China is using a model. Africa is a testing ground. It's working. The Chinese President Xi Jinping was just in South Africa these last few days, and he has now, it's a 60 billion, is it 60 billion? I think it's 60 billion, or is it 60 million? We'll get the figure. The package that China has rolled out now for Africa. There's some confusion as to exactly what that means in terms of aid, or there's also some debt write-off, but it's not as simple as it sounds. It's really very complicated. It's not really a debt write-off at all at the end of the day. So lots happened there. I think I've got that information somewhere, but I'll give you that in a little while in terms of what China is now doing in Africa. The China-Africa Forum took place in South Africa these last few days. Lots coming out of that. A lot of information coming out of that. We'll look at that shortly. But back to Djibouti. So if you see where Djibouti is, and you look at we talk about it being a strategic location. We're talking about the Middle East energy production and choke points, the percentage of global petroleum production, and the areas that are involved. Bab el Mandeb. Bab el Mandeb is relevant. Remember that, BABEL MANDEB, relevant to this whole conversation, because that is right between Djibouti there and Yemen. And the Strait of Hormuz, also pretty relevant in terms of the petroleum production. And around that, there's a canal, the Suez Canal. And that's why you have all these players. And just above that, you've got Syria. Nothing is happening in that region by accident. So you've got Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and just above that there is Iran, and just above that there is Kuwait. The UAE is somewhere in the plain there. So Libya is also pretty near. Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Kuwait. All of that is just one area separated by the at areas by the Red Sea, and at other areas by the Canal de Suez. So Djibouti is a strategic location, as they all guard the canal, that's the Suez Canal, and access to petroleum, access to energy. For that to happen, you have to militarize these areas, so you destroy them first. So Yemen was destroyed to be controlled. Syria is being destroyed to be controlled. Egypt was totally destroyed to be controlled, not to mention Libya. Libya is no longer a country. And so all these areas around the Red Sea and the Canal de Suez have been destroyed. Iraq was the first to, well, remember Iraq? And because you can't beat Iran, then there's something happening there with Iran also, because Iran is right between Saudi. The Strait of Hormuz is just at the tip there of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, at the tip of Yemen, and surrounded by Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. 17% of the global petroleum production comes from that area. That is no joke. That's a serious business. We're going to have a conversation about this, because we want to put this within the context of the Cold War that they say doesn't exist. But we also want to look now at our own selves. We're talking about the continent of Africa. We also want to look at the Caribbean and look at the militarization of the Caribbean waters. Granted, a lot of us don't have oil, but there are other things happening here because of the Cold War between China and America, and because of what's happening in Cuba. All right. So the U.S., we heard recently, the relationship between the U.S. and Cuba is changing. Wow, that was sudden, wasn't it? And dramatic. And a lot of people are happy for it. But it was going to happen one way or the other because China, I don't know if you've been to Cuba lately, but remember that China has been in Cuba. The relationship between China and Cuba has been a very good relationship. And they have the foothold that China has in Cuba is something that we want to examine. They've been in Cuba for many, 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 many years now. They send their children there to learn Spanish and, their own institutions. It is what it is. So the Cold War is being taken to the Caribbean waters. CBSI is a case in point. CBSI, of course, being the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. So what about our leaders? Because what I've done here is not no deep analysis. It's just skimming the surface. So even if you skim the surface, you must, as a leader, call your folks together and say, listen, we must leverage this relationship, this China-Jamaica relationship. We must leverage that. We can leverage that because of A, B, C, and D. We've got some power here instead of running up and down, but begging and giving away our birthright and selling us out over and over and over and over and over again. All right, we're going to go there. We're going to go there. We're going to talk some more about the military colonization of Africa. We're going to talk some more about the China-Cuba relationship. Obviously, China in Jamaica is something that is of great concern to me, understanding it within the context of China's relationship with the continent of Africa. In focus now also, Mr. Franklin Johnson, disrespect for the race. It's 65 days and counting, and he's still advisor to the Minister of Education, paid, of course, with taxpayers' money. 65 days. 65 days. And we ask David Cameron to apologize, but we won't ask Franklin Johnson, who says that the Caribbean Reparations Commission set up by CARICOM, meaning the governments of the region belonging to CARICOM, that the Caribbean Reparations Commission is a Ponzi. It's a Ponzi scheme. And he works with the government. 65 days and counting. Also in focus, FIFA, escalating scandal. Some say it is part of a plan for the U.S. control of FIFA. Is that so or is that not so? Well, I can understand that reasoning, but from a principled perspective, if the allegations are true, corruption is corruption, and regardless of the motives of why these came to light, if you are engaged in that level of corruption, then you must face some consequences. If you weren't involved, you would not have been caught, would you know? All right, so regardless of what the larger picture is in terms of the U.S. wanting to control FIFA, then who are they? Who are these people who have all been indicted for various levels of corruption? If it is true, I'll leave that hanging there. Another black youth has been murdered by Babylon. Recent killing of 17-year-old black youth, the latest act of state terrorism against black men in the United States. We've got state terrorism against black men all across the world. Here in Jamaica, it is not much different. We criminalize our youths. We make them into criminals without even knowing their names. And that, especially our men, especially our males, especially our black boys, our young black men are criminalized. They are judged by their skin color, they are profiled, and they are criminalized by their own. And that is why I talked earlier about us being the tool of white supremacist behavior. Because once they control your mind, they don't have to kill us where we are. In other words, they are the state, part of a state in the United States. So they're doing their own thing there. But once they have controlled our minds, turn us against each other, instilling us a sense of self-hate, lack of identity, then it's going to be pretty easy to continue this process of killing ourselves and criminalizing our young black men. We're going to have to change that. Part of that, as Dr. Nana Erna Brodba said to me in a whisper just a few months ago, that she has come to the conclusion that a great part of dealing with our particular situation as African people is to return to our spirituality. And it is that whisper that Dr. Brodba whispered in my ear many months ago, that set me thinking that let us go in search of that. Let us, Sankofa, go in search of that which we have lost, to correct the mistakes of the past, to find out what is a historical time of day, what is a cultural time of day, what is a political time of day for black people, and where do we center ourselves. Africans, black people, we ourselves, understanding that we are the first manifestation of God in the human flesh, might begin to change some of that. Understanding spirituality might begin to change some of that, our own spirituality. We are joined in the studios by some of the members of the Fisherhole Benevolent Society. We're joined by Alfred Gordon, the Secretary, and Juliet Taylor, the PRO. We're expecting more from the team, but let's go. Good morning, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Miss Sandra. And it's Juliet Taylor, the Assistant Treasurer.
Okay, Juliet Taylor, not the PRO, you're the Assistant Treasurer. Okay, thank you so much. And Alfred, you're the Secretary.
Yes, good morning.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again. Juliet, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
I heard you weren't doing so well. Was that you? Well, you don't want to talk about it? Okay. All right. Well, we might just talk about it. But good to see you, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are expecting other members of the team. Are they coming? Or?
Yes, some are on their way, but unfortunately, they'll be a little late.
Well, time waits on no man. So,
yeah.
And we have just a few minutes to go. All right, so we're talking now about the Sailors' Hole Benevolent Society and the plight of the fisher folk at the Sailors' Hole Benevolent Society. The folks who came in here last week obviously had a grouse. They said that the new agreement that was signed, and for our listeners to understand, just to give you a quick background, Sailors' Hole is really Fisherman's Beach in Otrias, where there are development plans for the Fisherman's Beach. The fisher folk, they're panicked when they heard, by the way, many moons ago, that there was going to be all this development plan and that they were going to be driven off the area without due diligence.
Yes.
So you have been, and we have been part of that process, ensuring that you were heard, that you were seen, that you were not excluded from these deliberations to develop the Sailors' Hole, the Fisherman's Beach. You have also, using the format of the Winifred Beach Benevolent Society, guided by that, formed yourself into a benevolent society and have been moving along that route with as a unified force.
Yes,
with you, and you selected a president and you have a nice proper organization in place.
Yes.
As a result of that, you were included now in discussions. There were meetings with you, and there was also legal representation, although that was touchy from time to time with the change in lawyers and so on. So that is the background. Now, at the end of the day, a decision was made that you would be compensated for your shops, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
Let us take it from there. Tell us about that. You all decided that was the way you wanted to go, to be compensated?
Yes. Through a series of meetings, at the Sailors Hole Fisherman Beach, we decided that we were going to take the route of negotiations. And that would involve the compensation and structuring an agreement that would ensure, as you said earlier, that we don't get developed outside of this development. And I think we have achieved that. All right, and we have always had monthly meetings where we make our decisions on whatever the matter is, and what happened was just some misunderstanding from some persons.
All right, so Juliet, this is it. You're saying it's a misunderstanding.
Yes.
The thing is, with the signing, we was going to deliberate and show the members before the signing, so that would get the crowd upset. They signed without finish showing the documents. So
okay, so my understanding is that the negotiations got to a point where the Fisher folk decided that yes, we're going to negotiate. We were going to go ahead and make our shops and so on available for
demolition.
Right, for demolition, but you have to compensate us for this.
Yes.
For the
and we had a settlement, and
the settlement was agreed on by everybody?
Yeah, everybody who was present at the time. And we had majority of the society present. We had a
and that settlement was 75 million?
Yes.
For 86 people?
Yes.
So and the cost of paying
plus
the lawyer.
The lawyer, the attorney's fee.
They pay
so the attorney fee is not in the 75 million?
No, and also any other costs attached, such as the cost for meetings and etc. etc. Those are negotiated as well. And so,
all right, so the 75 million now would see 86 people getting what? Less than $1 million?
Yes.
Yes.
And you agree? And you agree to that?
Yes, based on the conditions that we are the fishermen are always gonna be there during construction, after construction. We have made plans to include persons in the working the construction work that will be taking place. Persons that are not gonna be operating a business. We are gonna try to see how much of those persons we are gonna include while the construction is going on.
What about you, Juliet? You this is okay with you? Less than $1 million?
Well, they say they only value our structure, not the time that we've been lost. Because we had the fraternals with us too, and they were guiding us along the line. They say only the structures, not time lost. It's just the structure of the person, and they can give back the persons the material, and they promise that construction will be done the maximum 8 months, that people can be back in business in no time.
Right, so and it's less than $1 million.
Way less.
Yeah, but one of the things is, Andrea.
So do you all understand that you're going to be back here after 8 months with serious clauses, because less than $1 million can't even relocate you?
We have organized financial institutions to come and give financial advice, and we have, as a society, we have done everything in our power. We have sacrificed very, very greatly to be at this point. As me in particular, and each person there can speak to that. And
so you are satisfied with the settlement?
I am satisfied. And,
are you satisfied, Juliet?
Not with my point of view, but what I'm going to do. It already signed. We can't do nothing about it anymore.
We could have...
You're not satisfied, Juliet?
No.
Why are you not satisfied?
Mr. The little chubs can't do nothing, but what we can do, it already signed, it signed off.
Juliet, just a minute. I already told you and everyone there what you can do if you need to do something. I have asked you...
What can they do? What can they do if they need to do?
File an injunction against the signing within 10 days. I have clearly stated that to every member. No, it actually started and it was confirmed. The contract was binding with the money being placed in the ISCO account, and the thing is, it wasn't placed there until Wednesday. And that is when it was confirmed that the 30 days would begin to count. So 10 days hasn't passed.
Have some people been, do you feel as if you have been called down, that, you know, you have been shouted down, that if you disagree, then those who agree will not give you a chance to voice your disagreement?
Well, we allow everybody to voice their opinion and we listen to people. That's basically what the society was supposed to listen. And
you're supposed to, but do you all listen to each other?
Sometimes, because sometimes some people really call you down.
So how many people are in disagreement with this? How many? Because you have 86 people. How many?
But it's the majority. That's the thing.
Are in disagreement?
No.
Are in agreement?
Yes, because you have to put a vote on it before you do certain stuff. You cannot vote and you can't do it unless...
So the majority are in agreement?
The majority had voted for the settlement and
they voted.
And the signing as well.
Of less than $1 million?
Yeah, they voted.
Upon advisement from their lawyer?
And the fraternals.
And the minister's fraternal?
Yes.
All right, we're going to talk to the minister's fraternal. So where did the lawyer... You got your own lawyer?
Yeah, we as I said, there was time that there was changes made to the representation, the legal representations we had for different reasons. But yes, we actually sought our own representations and retained our own lawyers.
So let me just get this right. Alfred Gordon, you're the secretary. You're saying that majority of the people, and I heard Juliet saying the very same thing, majority of the people are in agreement with the settlement, less than $1 million to compensate you, and that it's a minority who do not agree, right?
And it's a very small minority, if I might say so myself.
That's how many? About 5?
Probably a little more than 5.
Meaning what? About 6?
Well, Andrea, from my point of view, I could tell you personally about 8.
About 8.
Yeah.
And so the minority voice is more or less than null and void?
No, it's not null and void, Andrea. And as Juliet said, if persons could come here now and tell you the relationship they have with me as the secretary, it's very, very, very special.
No, I'm not surprised about that. Look here, I'm talking to all of you as part of the very same thing, regardless of the titles that you have.
Yes.
Because you're talking about a group of people who are listening to advice and who have been cornered and excluded for a very, very long time. I've gone out of your way to form a benevolent society and then now to get legal representation. And you also have advice from the minister's fraternal. And you have been advised from all angles to take this settlement, as I hear you saying. I think it is a sellout. I think it is a betrayal. I think that you're going to find very soon that you are going to be regretting this decision. Prove me wrong, but I don't know that you can walk away with less than $1 million and even resettle yourself. I don't see that happening. It is not going to happen. Less than $1 million can't do that with the value of a Jamaican dollar. So let me just go on record as saying that. But then you have already made this. You have signed off. It's not my decision to make, and you have said that you, Alfred, who was very outspoken at the beginning, say you are satisfied with this settlement.
Yes, Andrea. So that should give you some form of idea that there is some good coming out of this.
All right.
It could not have been as bad as it is being projected right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we can just wait and see.
True.
Let us just wait and see what happens.
Yes.
And the thing, Andrea, what we need to understand here, the majority of the people in the society are directly fisher folk or operate in purposes incidental to fishing. So that brings it well over 70. Those people are always going to be there 24/7.
That is to be seen too.
Yes.
Yes, that is to be seen.
Yes.
Because we know what we know. All right, so, well, thank you very much for coming in. I'm very sorry that we started off so late because we're due to start at 7. But we're out of time because we do have to go to another interview. But all the best with this. We will continue to follow up on this. Any last word from you, July?
Not really.
All right, so you're not going to file the injunction?
Oh, no, you have to talk to the members. It's not a one person.
I don't mean you personally, I mean those who disagree.
Yeah, we have to talk to each other and then
you
so no
decision
from there.
So when is the deadline to file?
We have 10 days from Wednesday.
Okay, so the deadline is almost up on you. All right, it's a very interesting situation. The fisher folk, for the most part, seem to be in agreement with all of this. It boggles the mind, but we'll see.
All right, thank you very much,
all the best
for having us, and we'll keep everyone up to date on what is happening. Huh?
We appreciate that. All right, thank you so much, Alfred Gordon, Secretary, and Juliet Taylor, who has come in from the Benevolent, the Sailors Hole Benevolent Society. We also have a response from Mr. K.D. Knight to this, and we're going to hear what he said. He spoke to my broadcast assistant Shamara Preston on this situation. He was asked about why, if he knew that there were disagreements and so on, and so this is what he had to say.
As it is now, it has great potential for the users and for visitors, but it is merely in a state of potential. The conditions are not conducive to attracting persons from a wide cross-section of the society. And the Port Authority, in a quest to ensure that the entire beachfront is brought to a condition where persons can do business freely, where persons do business in a particular surrounding. They are planning to develop the area, the land, the beach, everything. And fishermen will have access and citizens will have full access. It's a development project. Well, I can't say whether they are aware or not, but what I do know is that they have been involved in the entire process and they have legal representation. They have a benevolent society, and the persons who signed on behalf of the benevolent society. I think it is the Sailors Hole Fishermen's Benevolent Society. And it was after long negotiations with Port Authority that the agreement was arrived at. The UDC is a landowner, but we see ourselves as holding that land in trust for the fishermen. And the UDC many years ago gave a commitment to transfer the land to the fishermen if there was formed this benevolent society. Now, because the Port Authority wants to do a development, then the issue arose now, how could they do it? UDC says, look, if the fishermen and yourselves at Port Authority can come to an agreement where they will be compensated, then we will carry through on the undertaking that was given years ago to transfer the land to the society. But the agreement now allows for the compensation for the land to be paid to the occupants and the transfer be done to the Port Authority to facilitate the development.
All right, the chairman of the UDC there, K.D. Knight, responding to the grouses of some of a minority, nonetheless, some of the members of the Sailors Hole Benevolent Society. For me, it's a conundrum. I am still trying to figure out what happened and how it happened. But we will continue to investigate this. I'm not sure I understand what Mr. Knight is saying about the Benevolent Society and the agreement that was in place for them to form a Benevolent Society, because I was part of the process understanding that the fisher folk are had the idea of forming a benevolent society when they saw the grounds covered and the successes made by the Winifred Beach Benevolent Society, so that at no time, I'm going to hold this until corrected, was there anything, any agreement anywhere with the UDC and the fisherfolk that ultimately you're to form a benevolent society, etc., etc. They formed a benevolent society because they used the example of other oppressed people in Portland who gained some traction, some form of success through their benevolent society. We are going to continue to monitor this one. It saddens me that this is the way it has gone. But if the people involved, for the most part, are satisfied, and then again, you know, there's something about people who suffer and have suffered for a long time, you know, kind of Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, that you will be satisfied for less than you should be satisfied for. So we have to think about that too. And we're not blaming the people involved. We're not, we're not. We're still trying to find out how it happened. and we, my thing is not to say to you, go and sign, go and file an injunction. My thing is, this was a betrayal on many levels. And if the fisher folk didn't know, certainly the UDC knows. And certainly the Port Authority knows that this was a betrayal. Professor James Small has been an activist, has been someone who has been involved for a very long time in teaching the Egyptian mistress systems, African spiritual systems at the university, the City University of New York. Also, he has been an activist since his teenage years. He has in-depth knowledge, thought-provoking, and you might have seen calm delivery. And part of his purpose has been to break the programming of miseducation. We're looking forward to hearing from him. He's also CEO of Sana Lodge Enterprise, Ghana Limited. He's CEO and president of the African American Management Company, Ghana Limited. He's president of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He's a priest of Oya, Babalarisha, Ifa tradition. He's also a member of the ancient Kemetic Masonic Lodge. He's co-founder of Cultural Heritage African Tours. He's also the vice president of the World African Diaspora Union, WADO, and past president of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, ASAC. Professor Small has traveled extensively, lecturing at churches, conventions, seminars, workshops, colleges, and universities throughout the United States, the Caribbean, and Africa. Workshops, colleges, and universities throughout the United States, the Caribbean, and Africa. His informative, eye-opening, and dynamic presentations have caused him to be recognized as one of the most distinguished activist scholar of our time. As I said before, he has taught for over 15 years at the City University of New York, including 13 years at the City College of New York's Black Studies Department and 2 years at New York City Technical College. He has taught courses on Malcolm X, traditional African religion, and Pan-Africanism, also on crime in urban community, urban crisis and issues, and African folklore. He's a priest also in the Yoruba spiritual tradition. So some of the issues that we want to look at. And I said before that I really appreciate your messages on the social media, email and so on, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can find me. You've left messages and we really appreciate them regarding this series. In Search of Our God, each week we move it a step closer to ourselves, and this week we're saying, in search of our God, becoming God again. Because of some of the questions that have been raised and some of the lambasting that I've received from you regarding why the search. Why the search? Because we believe that it is through African spirituality, one of the main avenues, that we can again find ourselves using African philosophy to tell us about our own behavior. Everywhere that we've seen Christianity, as Professor Small tells us, we've seen enslavement of the mind. Everywhere that we've seen Islam, we've seen the very same thing. I talk about Eurocentric Christianity and Turkish Islam out of Turkey. We have seen where religion rules, a denigration of African culture, a denial of the African historical reality, a denial of Africanness. We have seen a debasing of African institutions. We have seen death in the name of religion. And as David Muhammad told us last week and underscored, we have seen slaughter, we have seen destruction, we have seen disruption, disorganization, and enslavement. Our responsibility is to reject white supremacist views, white ideology, white theology, white imperialism. And so in search of our God. In search of our God, because we think that in finding our gods, we find ourselves, African black people. We are the first manifestation of God in human flesh, creating God as we did. So each week we move it a little bit further. It is not out of ignorance that we do this. It is out of knowing. So whether it be goddess Idemili of Igbo, Heteru of Kemet, Oludumare, Obatala, Oduduwa of Yoruba, it is our own gods that assure us of life, prosperity, health, unity, dignity, and power. And we talk about the denigration of our culture through religion. Because, and this is important to note, because it is culture that protects a people from genocide. Professor John Henrik Clark reminds us that we, as African people, that we're faced over, thousands, over 3,000 and possibly more years of cultural wars waged against the minds and the institutions of African people by Europeans and Asians and Jews. They don't want you to talk about it. They make it unlawful to talk about some of these things. So you're put on the no-fly list. And when you're traveling, you're put in a little room to sit down for hours because your name has been red flagged if you talk about these things. In some countries, you're imprisoned. We have seen cultural wars articulated by so many of our elders before us in the form of military invasion, as we are seeing now in Djibouti, in Africa, through AFRICOM and CBSI and so on. We have seen cultural wars through military invasions, military colonization and occupation of our land. We have seen the cultural wars in the form of physical oppression, economic imperialism, economic terrorism, cultural imperialism, spiritual dominance, and confusion. And that is important to note. And let us not talk about linguistic imperialism, because Professor Smalls points us in that direction for us to look again at linguistic imperialism that makes us ashamed of, in terms of our culture, but in terms of our language, makes us ashamed even to talk or what is derived then for those who are in this part of the world from the African language, whether it mix up with others or not, so that we're ashamed also of the African accent. It's not sexy. And the African language is to be laughed at. How many of us laugh and make fun of our brothers, continental brothers and sisters, when they speak? So we talk about the linguistic imperialism, the negative social manipulation, and the falsification of African consciousness. Why in search of our God then? Because the modes of oppression through religion, through our understanding and embracing and accepting of the white man's God and the white man's wickedness, spiritual wickedness in high places, have forced African people into and left them with a sense of insecurity, a sense of hopelessness. And as a group, social disintegration, a lack of group consciousness, a lack of collective consciousness, a sense of displacement, and for many, individual and group uncertainty. Why in search of our God then? Because much of what we're talking about have been achieved through cultural terrorism against the African people, using the tool. Because one of the tools, as Professor James Smalls, I'm sure, will tell us when he comes on, and we're still hoping that he does, of spirituality is religion. Religion used as a tool to interpret spirituality to oneself. So we go in search of our God in order to find ourselves. So to the brother who asks if God lost, why we're searching for God if God lost? No, but we need to find ourselves. And so it is my hope that in going on this journey, this search, through this medium for our gods, we find ourselves understanding that we are the first manifestation of God, understanding that we are God having a human experience. We are sacred beings. But that's a leap for a lot of African people. And I didn't really want to get there until about the 6th week. But because of the backlash and because of the accusations, I am forced to jump there in the 3rd week. So let me just get that out of the way and to say that we understand. I understand. And it's a fluid process because the journey is ever happening. The journey continues. It is a cycle. Transient for many, but an understanding of ourselves is important to understand also that cycle, to understand spirituality as opposed to religion and so on. So thank you so much for your feedback. I appreciate that. Some of them hurt though, you know. Yes, some of them tough, man. Some of them feedback are wicked. But we can deal with them still. We can. I can deal with it. I'm genuinely serious about that one. All right, so we're standing by to speak with Professor James Small. I'm so sorry that we're having this break. I know he really committed to this, a man of his word and so on, and we haven't heard from him yet, but we're still trying to get through to him. We also want to talk about the Egyptian mystery systems as we go in search of our gods, because part of understanding that we were the authors and the creators of our God in terms of the earliest theory of salvation. G.M. James, in George G.M. James, in Stolen Legacy. Stolen Legacy, remember that was one of the books that we read in the Running African Book Club. I think it might have been the first, if not the second book, because I think the first book might have been The Destruction of Black Civilization, African Civilization. But so we did Stolen Legacy way back in the day. It's one of those books that's permanently on the Africa Forum book club book list. So get a copy of that, because it details there the first, as a matter of fact, the first sentence in chapter 3, I think, talking about Greek philosophy, and it says that the earliest theory of salvation is the Egyptian theory, the first theory, and it goes on to prove that. So it is good to read that, to see how we're the foundation of what we do, what we believe, what we know, what we have come to know. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is how we know what we have come to know. Because the process is part of a distortion, is part of a destruction and the degeneration. It is part of the denigration. It is part of why we are in the position we are in, of not knowing ourselves, not understanding ourselves, of hating our own spirituality and African traditional spirituality in particular. It's a process of knowing, because Greek philosophy is stolen Egyptian philosophy. Greek theology is stolen Egyptian theology. We did this. We started this. So one of the places we want to go with the professor is to talk about spirituality and religion, and to examine that, to look at spirit and soul and so on, and to go into detail about what is African spirituality.
power, black 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 power.
We still haven't been able to reach Professor James Small. We're still trying. My apologies on that. A friend to the program, an elder and a brother to the program. So we know that if we can't get him, it's really, really something. And whatever it is, we hope that is nothing too serious and we're not throwing anything out there, just that we're not able to get him right now. But as one of the advisors to this program, we know that we'll get him in short order. We've known the elder for many, many moons. I met him in 1992. And then again, you recall that when we were in Ghana in 1998, when we were part of the delegation that returned the remains of our ancestor to be reinterred in Ghana. And I'm talking about our African ancestor that was dug up from Seville and then reinterred in one of the greatest ceremonies that I've ever been to. A welcoming ceremony from the entire continent of Africa. That Professor Small, and for those of you who remember that broadcast, that I actually could not wait for the boat because it was done in, the ritual included days and days of a wake at Kwame Nkrumah's mausoleum and all over Ghana, as in Manso and so on. And then the boats that carried the remains, the caskets with the remains, one from the United States and one from Jamaica, back through the door of no return, and it was on that occasion that it was renamed the door of return, through the dungeons in Ghana, and that the boats came in the same way, the same route in which they would have left with enslaved Africans, with our ancestors, and possibly the ancestor who we were bringing back, even though we were just bringing back the remains, the bones. That when we went, that we couldn't, there are some of us who couldn't wait for the boats to come in, to land on the shore, to make their way up the steps and then through the dungeons and through the door of no return. There's some of us who couldn't wait for that. Myself was one of those persons. Sister Minnie was in the boat actually. Jamoki, I think, was one of those persons, if I recall. But there were quite a few. One Africa, I totally remember One Africa. And of course, Professor James Smalls. We were in the water. I am sure Sister P might have been in that water, you know. Sister P, remind me, because I know we all got royally wet because we forgot for a moment, and so we went out to meet the boats. And I remember I was still doing that broadcast, and I had my microphone and stuff, and I was describing what was happening as the boats were coming in, and the feeling, and the hundreds of persons who were on the beach waiting and just chanting, and the young men in their red and black who were just like, I mean, that deep chant. It was really something. I got goose pimples all over. And then we rushed to the water. And by the time I got to the water, and I was still in the water with my microphone, when I turned around, it was Professor James Smalls who was in that water, just as excited, just as spiritually aware and spiritually conscious, that I interviewed him right on the spot. there in the ocean in Ghana. He's been a friend to the program and a brother and an elder ever since, and even before that, actually. So there you go. He tells us that we're God having a human experience, and I like that. So as we defend ourselves, my brother Profai says that we are not, it's not so much of a struggle, we're not attacking anybody, we're defending ourselves. And I like that too. As we defend ourselves against colonization of information, colonization of the image of God itself, miseducation, African cultural genocide and ethnic cleansing. As we defend ourselves against that, part of that process is having conversations about who we are, who we were, and who we're destined to be. The white man has made God in his image, and we have bought into it. And nothing is wrong if white people made God in their image. That's fine, that's their God. But we have bought into that. The concept of Christ is not a white man's Christ. And that's why we want to talk about Ehu and Osset and Osser. Hey, good morning to you, and thank you so much at Kevoy Stevens on Twitter. Also, who says, I love the way how Kabu is analyzing the other cultures and religions in the disintegration of African culture. Michelle at Irie Daughter, good morning to you, my sister. And you're referring to the fisher folk. You said these people have been tricked. It is sad and depressing. Morning to you, my sister Selector Princess, as usual, live tweeting throughout the program. We love that. Thank you so much, Selector Princess. Good morning to you, my sister Yasika Ya Asantua at Ya Music Read, who says 4-4, but okay, 4-4, so there are others down there. You said bottom line is the Ochi fishermen gave them land, it was theirs, and they gave it away for little or nothing. Shake my head. Morning to you, Asta Black, and you, just a simple sentence, you say the big sellout. Look that way. Morning to you, my sister Annika Clark in South Africa. Like the way you phrase that, you say this is one fishy mess. Yeah, like that. Morning to you, my brother Aston at Zungu Zungu Zeng. I must tell you how much I appreciate the information that you send. You must send me contacts too, because I think we need to have you in the studio for like 4 Sundays in a row, just co-hosting. And I'm very serious about that. At Zungu Zungu Zeng, referring to the FIFA situation, you say yes, but the USA is not a principled nation. That being the fact, it is correct to conclude that the US seeks to control FIFA. And I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying that, how do you control FIFA? The method being used by the US is to discredit FIFA principles. How are they doing that? Is there any truth in what they're saying? So that's just a question I'm asking, I think we're going to hear much more. I think this FIFA thing, and I said that in the early days, that it wasn't done, not half done, and I think it's still not done.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
The Xi Jinping's visit to Johannesburg for the China-Africa Summit. And I wasn't sure this morning whether it was 6 billion or 6 million, 60 billion or 60 million in loan. It's 60 billion, you say, so thank you for that. And Joan Lamont says, blessed morning, my sister Cabo, and pray most things great. Interesting program, thank you for that. And you say more love and strength, and also not believe but know. And I think you're talking about making a comment maybe on the African spiritual sacred sciences. Knowing is important, and how we come to know what we know is even more important, because if we figure out that how we have come to know what we know is through the falsification of African theology, then it really means that we know nothing. So then we have to sankofa. We have to go back while we look forward to retrieve that which we have lost, to correct the mistakes that we've made as a result. And that is where we are. 2 minutes now going up to 8:30, 2 minutes before the cash pot draw. Yeah, so China will continue to support capacity building in Africa, it says. We're going to dissect that and see what that means. Also, China will support the construction of 5 Jiaotong. That Jiaotong means communications universities in Africa. Wow, that's the way to go. That is the way to go if you're colonizing. Communications would be one of the first tools to strengthen. So there you go. China to provide 5 billion in grants and 0 interest loans. And that is something that we have to pay attention to. 35 billion in combination of preferential loans and non-preferential export credits and concessional foreign loans. We're going to look at that later on. That is China and Africa. China will cancel the overdue portion of interest-free loans provided to low-income African countries. That is tricky. We have to know what that really means, because at the end of the day, it is not what it sounds like. And 60 billion in various kinds of support.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
In Jamaica. Sound of Oliver Mtukuzzi. Hey! Enjoying this one. Good. Just about 5 minutes to go before the local and international headlines. In the meantime, we're making a stop in Zimbabwe. Hey, we must apologize because we really wanted to have that conversation today with Professor James Smalls, and hopefully we can push it back. It means we're going to have to push back a lot of things, but we'll tell you before the week is out how it's going to go as we continue in search of our God. African sacred science, African spiritual systems, and the Egyptian mystery system. Egyptian theology, Greek theologies, Egyptian philosophy. In the meantime, what you can do for me too is to read A Stolen Legacy. And as we talk about stolen legacy, let me just quickly go to the books we're reading now in the Running African Book Club. Please get your copy. Most of these books are published by Ian Randall Publishers. Dragon in the Caribbean, China's Global Redimensioning, Challenges and Opportunities for the Caribbean. That's written by Richard Bernal, our own Richard Bernal. So get a copy of that, published by Ian Randall Publishers. It's on the book list. Always on the book list, one of the permanent books on the book list, of course, is the Stolen Legacy. Stolen Legacy, Greek philosophy, Stolen Egyptian philosophy. And it's written by George G.M. James. Also on the book list is the Akan Diaspora in the Americas by Kwesi Konadu. The Akan Diaspora in the Americas by Kwesi Konadu. And finally on the book list for now, Color for Color, Skin for Skin, Marching with the Ancestral Spirits into War O at Morant Bay by our own Dr. Clinton Haughton. Published by Ian Randall Publishers. Full Circle Music on Facebook. All right, you're saying the Fisher folks let us down. You're saying it's a disgrace. Yeah, I feel that disappointment. And Teddy Fullwood, I can't believe you say always enjoy listening to your show, but I would like to introduce you to our own Jamaican brother who is doing awesome work internationally in bringing alive the God within us, and would be, I'm sure, compliment to your program. We're very happy to meet him. We need contact numbers and so on. Also, good morning, Natalie. So listen, so my laugh just now had nothing to do with what I was reading, because this is not TV. It's just Natalie Campbell who came in laughing like crazy, and I don't know why. So I just laughed back. And Chantel Bobler, all right, we're going to read yours later. Thank you for that also. Talking about the backlash that you yourself receiving.
Good morning, I am Natalie Campbell with the local and international headlines. The two major political parties will host meetings today as campaigning continues ahead of general elections which are expected in the coming months. The People's National Party will meet in Lucy Hanover, led by Pumming Months. The People's National Party will meet in Lucy Hanover, led by Party President and Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller. The party says the meeting will feature a roster of speakers, including members of Parliament, candidates, caretakers, regional chairmen, youth and women's leaders, and other party officials from the region. In the meantime, the opposition Jamaica Labour Party will host its constituency conference at the Stony Hill Primary School in St. Andrew at 6 p.m. Opposition leader Andrew Holness is expected to give the main address, in addition to speeches from Desmond McKenzie, Mike Henry and Juliet Cuthbert Flynn.
The Consumer Affairs Commission has outlined several guidelines that people should follow when shopping for electronic items. The Commission says for the first 6 months of the 2015-2016 financial year, consumers complained mainly about electrical equipment and appliances. It states that these items are usually bought as gifts for family and friends during the Christmas period. However, the Commission is urging consumers to be careful when making such purchases. The agency says consumers should, among other things, read all labels carefully, test all appliances in the store if possible, and get a guarantee or warranty for all appliances. As it relates to warranties, the Commission says consumers should ensure that they are informed about exactly what the warranty covers and the period of that coverage. In addition, the Commission says if consumers are aware that substandard electrical items are being sold on the market, they should report it immediately to the Bureau of Standards or the Consumer Affairs Commission. A Senton man accused of killing a 6-year-old boy still wait until next year to find out whether he will be granted bail. He is 24-year-old Vinell Brown of Mount Edgecombe in Runaway Bay. Brown was charged in connection with the death of 6-year-old Daniel Anderson, a student of Runaway Bay All Age. The child's mutilated body was discovered on Monday, November 16, a day after he went missing. Brown was charged last Tuesday with murder after he was pointed out in an identification parade Monday. He appeared in the St. Anne's Bay RM Court 3 times last week, and on his final appearance on Thursday, he was remanded into custody to reappear before the court on January 14 next year as the case file was incomplete. In the meantime, Brown also appeared before the court last week on a charge of unlawful wounding. It is alleged that on July 8 of this year, Brown got into an argument with his sister where the dispute turned physical. He is accused of inflicting wounds to his sister with a machete, and his mother was also injured. He returns to court in this case on February 4. Education Minister Ronald Thwaites is urging the administration at the Sidney Pagan STEM Academy in Braes River, St. Elizabeth to place emphasis on getting more students to attend the school. He also wants the school to get the students involved in vocational areas, especially agriculture. In addition to the focus on agriculture, the minister said efforts must also be made to have the school earn its way. While on a tour of the school last Thursday, Mr. Thwaites said he was satisfied with the academic performance of the institution 1 year after it became Jamaica's first science, technology, engineering and mathematics STEM academy. He noted that the school is costing the government over $100 million annually, and he has asked the administration to put together a plan outlining how available resources can be used to help the institution to be self-sufficient. The minister pointed out that while the school currently has 277 students enrolled, it has the capacity for 477. In news overseas, people in Venezuela are voting in congressional elections that are seen as the first serious challenge to the governing socialists in 17 years. Opinion polls suggest the broad opposition coalition could capitalize on widespread frustration over food shortages, inflation and crime. Finally, Islamic State militants say they are responsible for a blast that killed the governor of Yemen's port city of Aden. Jafar Mohammed Saad and several aides died when their convoy was hit. IS says it detonated a car laden with explosives as he drove by.
When we lose our African connection, we lose our rural connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
So the think tank, 1966, you know, honey, if I've been thinking about this, and we know so 1966 been a lot to me. It's a very special date for me, a very special year for me. But why 1966?
It has to do.
All right, I'm going to shut your mic off a bit, and you just pull it down to you. All right, so we can hear you a little bit better. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go. All right, let me do this again. Yeah, go ahead, honey.
Okay. As a group of professionals who are based in the Rastafarian tradition, and with our aim, we thought it fit to associate ourselves with His Imperial Majesty and what he has done for us in the time that he came to Jamaica and the explosion which took place afterwards. We are the product of that movement. So we see it fit to recognize the works that was done.
All right, so 1966 being the year
that His Imperial Majesty came to visit
Jamaica.
us.
And that was April 1966. All right. Let me just tell you who we have in the studio with us. We're going to jump the gun there. All right, so Nicoda Haughton is a social scientist specializing in psychology. Well, she has specialized training in psychology and communication, one of the leading researchers in the area of organic-based medicine. Hey, Nicoda.
Hello.
Why are you looking? You don't want all that information? Well, look, I have it. I'm going to read it. What about you, Courtney?
Morning to Radio Land.
Should I read the stuff?
Not everything you read.
All right, financial expert with specialized training in real estate, project management with a focus on agriculture, marketing and banking, and author of the main study of agro-processing in Jamaica, which is currently being used by USAID. That's true?
Some of it.
And then we have Hanif Haughton, plant environment engineer, training in mechanical technology, metal machines and metal forming. Forming? Okay. Water supply engineering, sewage engineering, environmental protection, engineering economics and project conceptualization. It is important for us to say that because of what we're going to talk about now, which is the plans for St. Thomas. But before we get to the plans for St. Thomas, Nicoda, tell me a little bit about the think tank itself.
Well, the think tank is a group of professionals who came together, realizing that we weren't able to function by ourselves. In a sense, we needed each other, so we came together. We discussed ideas, you know, and we figure out ways to bring these ideas to a physical form. Basically. So we depend on each other. We're a family.
Well, I notice all the Haughtons because my broadcast assistants are the Haughtons are here. So there you go.
We're a family in that sense, and we're a family in terms of the world of work as well. We are trained in different areas, but we complement each other then.
Okay. All right. So in the end, I mean, various different disciplines coming together to form this think tank. Courtney, a little bit about your own role in the think tank as a financial expert, etc.
Well, we know that the basis of everything in this world that we live is the economy. Mm-hmm. We all exist in an economic space, right? And anything we do really comes down to a project. Yeah. Each project carries with it financial implications, and economic is the whole foundation on which we undertake projects. Mm-hmm. So my training and my whole background has prepared me really to bring that aspect which is oftentimes the missing link between success and failure. Mm-hmm. If we do not really have that economic aspect properly thought out and properly structured so that we can benefit from our efforts.
Mm-hmm. It's a conversation that we've had many times in this space about that gap. You know, that the fact that we as a people haven't focused enough on the economics of what we do. So I get your point. All right, so we're here, Hanif, about projects, and this is where we're going now, because the project that we're looking at for St. Thomas is literally going to be among and within the Rastafarian community.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Okay, we are partnering with the Rastafarian community located in St. Thomas, and landowner to get access to lands so that we can implement a sustainable program based on what the strengths are of the Rastafarian community. Mm-hmm. Our program, though, would be a program that would be replicable to all the indigenous peoples, because that's where we really are going. Because we are of the Rastafarian faith, and Pastor Graham Christian in Pitney first, mm-hmm. we will look towards the Rastafarian community to accomplish this and set the foundation, the pilot, mm-hmm. for where this can be replicated all across the island and all across the world. Because we are more world-centric than just, well, we are Afrocentric, but we see the world and the peoples of the world, especially the indigenous peoples of the world, with having this very vital need.
Yeah, the struggles are the same in the indigenous communities. So that the plan, let us now talk about the plan, and I don't know who want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, Courtney.
I see him pointing at me. The plan really is set out in what we call about 3 phases, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a short term, right?
Yes.
What we call phase 1 in the first 6 months, which we are planning to, first of all, establish a food base, i.e. securing our food supply. So the 4.5 acres on which the actual Bingy house is situated, we'll be looking to establish food crops which can sustain the village itself. Right? Mm-hmm. Bringing potable water supply to the village, because right now there is no piped water there, so we need to get that there. We have identified the supply, the source, mm-hmm. and we're putting together the actual costings to get that there, and so that is another thing. And providing irrigation water for the agricultural endeavor, because without the irrigation, you know, Jamaica just suffered from a drought. The prediction is that there's going to be more of this coming down the pike. So if we're looking to agriculture, we really need to provide mm-hmm. the facility to ensure that our efforts don't go to waste. Mm-hmm. So we do need to ensure that before we begin to even plant, we put in some irrigation systems. Yeah. The roads to the property is badly scarred, eroded. There are places where we need to do immediate work.
Where exactly is it?
Honey, if you want to...
Okay, this is on the original Stonygut Road where Paul Bogle lived. Mm-hmm. Actually, along the road is that cotton tree where they congregated before they marched to.
Right. So it's down the hill? Is it down the hill? Literally down the hill?
It is. It is beside. It's on the level beside the community of York. But now what they did was they closed that road after 1875. They closed the road well, you know, they drove everyone out, abandoned that road, and built the road above the hills.
Okay.
So the original road is where we are.
Okay, all right.
The original, so it's also very, very significant that this was where Paul did his thing. This was where they lived, and it was where the energy is there. So it is also our ancestral ground that we are looking to secure and make it vibrant.
All right. So that phase 1 is...
That's phase 1.
Yeah.
Right? And that would take place, we say, over the next 6 months. Right? Within phase 2, we expect to be completed in the next 36 months. We're looking at, this is our medium-term activities to expand the farm to an additional 90 acres, of which we are currently in negotiation with the landowner for a joint venture thing. And we think that will be successfully concluded. And from the proceeds, from what we would be doing on the farm, we would now be looking to develop agro-industries, because value added is the way to go. Right? We need to move away from being primary producers and move to the stage of value added, because that's where we'll create wealth. Right? Now, also, we need to be developing educational programs targeting the needs of the citizens, particularly for Rastafari, because the education process, which we are now exposed to, I do not think it really prepares us for the task we have at hand.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. And a matter of fact, the Emperor did say the education which we get so ill prepares us for the task we have at hand. Now, we as Rastafari, having identified that, it is incumbent on us that we now begin to prepare the educational facilities and the training for our children so that they can become the leaders they are, because of the training we are giving them. You know, so that is very important, the educational aspect. Let me just finish the phase 2. Developing culture, community, and what we call the cultural tourism product, because automatically, once we have something like that, the world will know. And the world is beating up past the Rasta door and seeing that we are not quite prepared to accept them and to get the benefits which accrue from these visits. Right? And as we say, the complete reconstruction of the access road. Right? And if you're saying something.
Oh no, I was just saying that part of the whole thing is that we are the day that we are planning to meet on the big ground is the 10th, which is the United Nations Day for Human Rights. Now, part of the process of this is that we want to put the people in a position that their human rights is automatic. It's not something that you fight for, it is automatic. No one will even, the position you're in, no one will look to take your human rights. And if they even try to take it, you're in a position to successfully resist.
You know, I want to segue a little bit and come forward. Nicola, you're pretty young.
Very.
Do you mind saying how old or young you are?
I'm only 27.
There you go. And this is why I'm asking this, because for somebody at your age to be thinking like this, it might not be unique, but it's kind of unique. You know, how did you get to this place where you're beginning to think about sustainable development, and especially with indigenous villages like the Rastafari community?
Well, it didn't start with me thinking about the indigenous villages. It started with me thinking about people my age coming out of school, because we are trained. We go to universities, and after we're done, especially if we're trained here in Jamaica, we are told you need to migrate, you need to leave. You know, go work on somebody else's country, go work on bettering somebody else's economy and not your own. I didn't want to do that. I want to work on my own. I want to see my country better. So I found a problem there. With that problem now, what I realized was that there was nothing here in this country that we could actually work towards.
Wow, that is a sad realization.
There is nothing in our own country.
Yeah.
Where do we get the jobs? You know? In a sense, the Chinaman leaves a supermarket for his offspring. The Indian leaves a garage. But what is there for me? I'm not Chinese, I'm not Indian. What is there for me? There was no foundation. Nothing was left. So it is up to me now to develop something. My parents couldn't do it, so they sent me to get the education to put myself in a position where I can now develop something for them, myself, and those that are coming after me.
And so the objective, and here we are at this place, I know we're jumping a lot, but so in developing something, and this is not the first project you're working on, is it?
No,
with the team. You want to talk quickly about the ones you did before, just quickly?
Okay, we have done what we call a community contact center development, when we are looking at making housing affordable, making the houses pay for themselves. So when somebody gets a house, they don't get a 30-year burden, but they get something that is also earning for them. And this is now, well, this is in the international market being, being discussed. We also did one for a community in Ghana, building a village. We're trying to expand. There was this village that long ago it was very vibrant. Now it's like it was 50,000, now it's 5,000 the people there. So we have set a program to facilitate the regeneration of this village. That program now is in the funding stage. They are seeking funding because we were just the consultants on that one.
All right. And so, Nicoda, here we are with this concept, which is to develop the Rastafari community in St. Thomas. What is the aim of that?
In developing this Rastafari community, you see, what it does is it lends itself to the development of the wider community. The Rastafari community is the platform. This is the starting point. This is where we are building. They have the vision, we have the skills and the know-how. So we have to now link them to create something that will not just effect change for them on a personal level, but effect change on a wider perspective for everybody that is out there. Because what we're doing essentially is creating wealth. In creating wealth, you create power, a power base. So the Rastafari community is doing just that.
So that the conversations you've had or you're having with it's a Nayabinge group in St. Thomas.
Yes.
What does this entail?
Okay, well, what happened was that they had a need. Against, like Nicoda said, they had a need, and we saw ourselves with the ability to fulfill this need, to move them along the way, to help them achieve their goal. One of the main goals of Rastafari is repatriation. And we see repatriation in a different light. We see where we need to set the base here, have something replicable so we can replicate it wherever they go. So we don't send a group of our brethren into Africa without any support system. So that is one of the aims of this. Okay, so make sure we do have a base. Now, along with that, spins off a whole heap of things. It spins off human rights. It spins off wealth creation. It spins off all of that. But then again, we are using them because they are the group that is in the best position to take this off. Okay.
As you talk, Hanif, I'm thinking about even Shashamane, and that if we had this model that we're discussing now in Shashamane, what difference that would make. Now they've lost all the land in Shashamane, I think.
Now, may I say that Shashamane is inspiration for this model.
So we cannot make this happen
because what happened in Shashamane should never be allowed to have happened in the first place, and most certainly must never be repeated. Our repatriation will not be done by others. That is a pipe dream. Our repatriation will only be affected by ourselves. We must prepare ourselves to repatriate. And we cannot repatriate poverty and unskilled, unintelligent human beings into Africa and expect that by they reach to Africa, so magically they are going to suddenly become nation builders. The emperor did say, in a true sense, Africa awaits its creators. He was speaking to us. We need to understand that, and we need to prepare ourselves for this transition from Jamaica to Africa. It is a must. Our prophet Marcus Mosiah Garvey said it. It is incumbent on our generation because we have the skills. What is lacking is the will. we now put forward this model as the way in which we can effectively build a platform here, that when we use it to shoot up and when we land over there, we have the tools, the skills, and the ability to utilize whatever resources there are there and to make ourselves sustainable.
You know, I've been in this space for a very long time, and this is one of the first times, I can't remember, that I've heard a real practical solution to that particular aspect of our problems. So we'll come back and talk about some more about that. I know that we're going to have to open the phone lines. I know there are many questions out there. We're also going to talk about what's going to happen in Stony Gut on the 10th of December, which is when? Thursday?
Thursday.
Pledge allegiance to the lion, the one who reigned from Mount Zion. We pledge allegiance to the lion, the one who reigned from Mount Zion. 'Cause the lion of Judah reigned over land.
All right, we're back with you, speaking with Nicodia, Hanif, and Courtney Haughton about, about the think tank 1966. Did we already open the phone lines? I didn't announce that, but hey. All right, let me take this call. We're not quite ready, but let me take this call. Hotep?
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, greetings, my brother. How you doing?
All right, so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, say I hear the ideas them way I issue up on the radio, and I say, I just call in for give a part of my idea towards a connection still. I have an idea to build some bamboo water pipe, and I want to make them talk about the irrigation settings and things. I want them get a link still to build some water pipe to help out the irrigation.
One of the things that
them function still.
All right, Hanif, but one of the things we're going to do is give the contacts so people can reach you. But do you want to respond to that?
I say in action I build them, and I say I have the idea.
You have the idea, I know.
We can bore them same way.
Yeah, man, I heard you.
Water pipe, the enough irrigation, pan them operation, or me hear them talk about still.
I heard. I'm just going to have Hanif respond to you, all right? Yeah, go ahead, Hanif.
Okay, one of the things we're going to do is we'll be looking at new ideas, new inventions, new ways of using our indigenous material. And, you know, so all these ideas will be considered to see for their viability, economic, long-term, you know, progress. And then we'll make decisions of what kind of things that we would go into. Because we are expecting that with the ingenuity of Jamaican people, you'll get a lot of ideas, a million and one ideas. So all these will be considered.
A lot of
ideas will come through.
Yeah.
So we will consider each one.
All right, so keep listening, and then we're going to give you some contact details for the think tank, all right?
All right.
Okay. All right, thanks for calling. All right, we're going to open the phone lines, but we're doing that in about 10 minutes or so. All right. I want to know now a little bit, two things before we take the calls. One is what the village, the community is going to look like. And then the other thing would be what's happening on December 10th.
The village space. Okay. At the present time, there is 5.5 acres of dedicated land for the Bingy House. They own that. Okay. There is, like I say, agreement is made for the surrounding lands. The village itself will have housing. It will have factories. It will have, in the end, at the build-out point, it will have research stations, it will have museum, eateries, offices, schoolrooms, all the things that you take to make a village. Okay? So it would have everything involved in it. And it would be the center that controls. There would be the control center for everything else that we would do.
And the idea is to make this a model and to replicate this, not just across Jamaica.
No, but so what we do is we go looking now for, again, because, you know, the Jamaica indigenous population is one of the only indigenous population in the world that doesn't have any lands. We have no lands. Rastafari has no lands. The the Maroons have lands.
Which is gradually being taken from them.
But so we don't have any land. So anything we do, we have to make agreement with persons with land. So it would be a collaborative effort with the landowners who are willing to do this, the Rastafari community or the indigenous community, and ourselves.
All right, Courtney, it's an ambitious project, obviously, and you, as the financial expert on this, would be best able to field the question on funding. How is this going to be done?
Funding, well, at phase 1, right, that funding would have to come from ourselves. Right? When I say ourselves, I mean the Rasta community, right? And our tagline is aligning resources with developmental needs. Within the Rasta community, there are many brethren who are sitting down on what I'd call financial wealth, which what we are asking for is we're going to be laying out the project in timelines and in achievable segments that someone we can say to them in the first week we're going to be needing X number of dollars to pay the farm bill and to help on the road. We'd ask the brethren to step up and identify at what point in time they can now contribute to offset the cost related to these activities, right? Now it would mean that it would eliminate the collection of funds by any one entity. In that way, we're trying to preserve the integrity and the transparency of the activity. So therefore, what we do is align particular activities and financial needs with specific resources which individuals would come up and say, in week 1, I can fund the farm bill, which is $10,000. Someone else will come and say, by week 2, I can fund buying the shingle for the road. So that specific resources are aligned directly with the needs, and there's no need for a middleman. The one who is providing the resources will go to the source and pay at the source, and then we go and get the stuff.
Sounds good. Nicola, as a communications expert on the team, how are you getting this message out?
Well, your program is one medium.
Thank you.
It's one such medium. We've used social media to also get the message out. We are in direct contact with some of the community members that we're trying to reach. We've met them. We've had conversations with them. So that's how we are going about advertising and getting people involved.
So Hanif, well, here we are on this program, and bearing in mind what Courtney said, that at some stage you're going to be tapping into the community to say your assistance is needed. What message would you want to give to that community right now?
Okay. The Rastafari community is intent on putting in place developmental programs which will not only affect the Rastafarian community but everyone else who is in the environment. It means that we are looking at the St. Thomas community and we are looking for the support from the St. Thomas community. We have already sourced a lot of things that the general community can get. Now, we have spoken to people who have said, yes, I have these things here waiting. They have back to school things, farm things, mechanical things, house building things, a lot of things that are there that if you know who and how to get it, it can be sourced for the benefit of the community. So we want to do it in such a way that the community becomes involved. The community, it is part of them because they would have to be, the bulk of the workers would come from the community. Therefore, the bulk of the resources, the bulk of the wealth would go back into the community. So that's and the stakeholders who you would want to, at some stage, to appeal to, whether it's for expertise or cash or whatever you can do at a certain stage. What are they?
Well, we would say at this point in time, right, where the juncture that Rastafari is at is very serious, and we need to begin seriously to look at developing our own economy. We do have the model in Leonard Howell and Pinnacle. It was so successful that the then established government destroyed it. We are now living in a different era, a different time, wherein our such movement, Rastafari, is internationally recognized, and we do not have that economic pivot, that base from which to launch. This is a golden opportunity, because you must remember, that historically, Stony Gut, exactly where we are, is the last, what I'd say, serious confrontation with the establishment in a way that they reacted very angrily and really shook them to the foundation. It caused a lot of shake-up out of it. Came Sir John Peter Grant reforms and a whole lot of things which came out of that. Right?
And it's funny, we just spent the last 3 months at least doing that, And so I think this is really the
perfect segue.
Yes, it is.
But I'm saying to you that was an inspiration for this, because I was listening to your program. And the inspiration came to me as to how do we talk about these things, we say a lot of things, and we have a nice, good, warm, fuzzy feeling for about 3 months, and then we just leave it.
And the question I was asking, and I asked this Muta made up on top of the truck, and I asked him, said, then Muta, after we done march, then what?
No, but I heard you,
Yes.
I heard you.
Yes.
And I wasn't satisfied with the answer which Muta gave, because it didn't have an answer.
It's a good thing Muta up on the cruise and him not here.
No, not saying not that it was unsatisfactory. You must understand me.
I'm joking.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's not that it was unsatisfactory.
Yes.
Because an answer for that question required some thought.
Yes.
It has taken us, the think tank, how long? 3-4 months to come up with, because I from you said it, I've been thinking about it. And I said, but I know how we have to do it.
Yes.
And we must do it, because we owe it to Paul Bogle, and we owe it to ourselves.
Well, Courtney, I'm just going to say, you're going to have a very difficult time keeping me out of this. No, honestly, I'm on board fully. So, all right.
I'm saying to you, right? It is not about sentiment,
Yes.
It is about our very existence.
I know, yes.
Our very survival. That is what I am talking about.
So the idea, and you mentioned Pinnacle just now. When you were talking before, I thought about Pinnacle too. I hear that government is acquiring lands now to develop a Rastafari village at Pinnacle. But
how can government develop a Rastafari village?
We've heard that many times. So
how can government develop a Rastafari?
We're not phased by it. It is election gimmick.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's say it.
Okay.
No, but that's
I'm not going to answer that question, because don't make me answer that question.
No, but look, that again sends volumes of messages.
Yes.
It tells us that they are aware of where the power lies.
Yes.
And who has the...
Michael Malley, when he came to power saying he got a rod from Selassie. We don't remember that.
Totally.
Right?
Was it true? I hear Jerry say it wasn't quite so.
That is up for debate.
Yes.
I know he went to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Right? He did make a sojourn into the African continent, and I do know he made a stop. As to whether or not the emperor gave him a rod, I would think that he would be totally out of line if that was not so.
Okay, well, let me not tell a lie on Jerry, but he did. I know he's questioning that. As a matter of fact, I know he'll pick up this conversation too.
Jerry?
Yes.
Yes, because Jerry is another one of the media outlets who we had spoken to before, and I do know that we'll probably
I'm sure
be with him.
I'm sure. All right, so my broadcast assistant is telling me to go to the phone lines. Give me 1 minute. Let us talk about December 10.
Yeah.
Because we need to talk about December 10.
What December 10 is, right? Quickly in a nutshell, is really we're making a PowerPoint presentation in a microcosm of what the bigger project is. And we like stakeholders, potential stakeholders, to come along and see, because that is where at the point we'd like to begin to identify donors, sponsors, people who can actually put up the physical necessities to allow us to make this thing happen. It is about our future,
So who are you saying should be there on December 10?
We have identified several. Well, we're talking to some of the officials over in St. Thomas. Definitely we have to get them there. People from the parish council and those things we should have sent. We have sent correspondences to them. We will follow up to ensure that they are there, because they're the local authorities. So anything you're doing, it is just good protocol that they are kept in
Yeah, of course, yes.
Right?
Especially something like that.
Other people with other interests in St. Thomas and people of the wider Rastafari community and people, well-minded people who we think would like to add some value to this, because this is not about us, you know. This is not about us, you know. What we are about is expounding an idea that we know that the time has come. It happens that the lot has fallen to us to expound it. But it's not about us, not for 1 minute, right? Because we want to set the project in such a way that God forbid that if anything should happen to any of us, the project is self-sustaining and can carry on.
All right, so December 10, what time?
11 o'clock.
11 a.m. in Stoneygut. Where in Stoneygut?
At the Nyambingi house.
At the Nyambingi house.
That is on the road to York. You will see the sign with, I think, a Bunny Wheeler poster is there, right there. You just make that right turn along that dirt road, which is the original Stoneygut road.
Which they abandoned.
Okay. Yes, so you told us.
No, but interestingly, we were saying that we do owe it that this is where we need to launch from. You know why? This is the last point from which our ancestors embarked to seek real justice, and we're brutally oppressed. Every other movement along the way has been hijacked somewhere along the line. This is the one which cannot be hijacked. So they either going to brutally oppress us, which they can't at this time, or we are going to succeed, and we are going to succeed.
And St. Thomas is also important. Leonard Howell and so many others came out of St. Thomas. So the relevance of St. Thomas is...
There the spirit of St. Thomas is very much alive. And just as an aside, again, do you know St. Thomas was the last receiver of slaves in Jamaica who came not from the west coast of Africa, but from the Congo?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And that's why the African retention is there, and that is why they have been suppressed, and that's why when you look at the map and you look at all the data in Jamaica, St. Thomas has the smallest amount of data, because we are the least. But we are not the least.
No.
We are the most.
All right, we go to the phone lines. Haughton?
Yeah, morning. I want a shot still.
Yes.
May I say the idea where them a come about, may I say it's the idea where I go work out well for the people. But may I say if them sell shares in it, me feel say it would work out good, $7 or $10 shares, and you can't buy any amount of shares in it same way. Me feel say that would give it a big push still.
Bridget,
everybody can make them contribution and everything right down and document.
Bridget, that is a brilliant idea, but it requires certain legal procedure before we can actually accept funds for the shares. We have to go through a prospectus, and we'll have to float it. We'll have to go through this Jamaica Central Securities. A whole lot of things are involved in that. But there are other ways around in which we can do it. We can probably do what we call a provident society. We can do a provident society. We can do a cooperative society in which we can put the society. We can do a provident society. We can do a cooperative society in which we can put the funds together. But it's going to require a lot of trust and hard work and serious people, serious minds about what these funds are to be used for. Oftentimes in Jamaica, a lot of money is made available, but they never go to where they are ought to go, and we need to ensure that we have those systems in place before we take people's money. It's not a good thing.
But more if you do it fast still, because I tell you that idea is great still, great, and all of the idea with them, obviously them even go on within a government certain way still. And I said, I said great things not go on, but the one that well, it's greater.
Thanks so much for calling.
Production. Yeah, man, give thanks.
All right, as we continue to take your telephone calls, 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. Haughton?
No, good morning.
Yes, greetings, my brother.
Yeah, what my contribution is this morning. With the same question as asked, well, after Paul Bogle march and finding Paul Bogle, what next? But my idea is that we should get member of the Pan-African to run as an independent member to one in West and East St. Thomas. And those big politics talk about the blackness of ourselves and what we're supposed to achieve. And I think that would be a good. We can't allow Mike Henry to use us and talking, because he's only doing that for a purpose to suit himself and his party.
All right, thank you so much.
Can I respond?
Yes.
I understand him because he's asking us to go the political route. However, political power has as its base economic power.
Yes, but you know.
Right, so therefore We do have to build the economic base, brethren. We have to build the economic base before we can think of.
Please hang up and listen because we have so many calls coming in, all right?
Okay. You know, I want the brethren to understand, you know, that political power emanates from economic power. There's no political power without economic power.
Let's go back.
It don't last very long.
Well said. Let's go back to the phone lines. Haughton?
Greetings.
Hey, greetings, my sister.
Yes. I want to touch on the whole repatriation thing. A remark that the brethren made in saying that no unintelligent person, you know, they will be taking them back in Africa.
Really? Nobody said that.
Oh, well, he's saying that we now care for I'm
just going to ask Courtney to repeat what he said because he was talking about how we prepare ourselves to go.
All I'm saying, sister, is that for us to repatriate, we need to prepare ourselves to become viable economic entities. We must be trained. We must have skills. We must have something to offer in order for us to first sustain ourselves and secondly to add value to where we are. Unintelligent people, generally speaking, and when I say unintelligent, I mean people who sit down and wait for handouts and believe that they are in this world to be sustained by others. That is what I mean by unintelligent. That's right. That is what I mean by unintelligent people.
All right. So yeah, may I listen and may I say, you see what the intelligent people, even in a Rasta, what them are to I and I, the unintelligent ones here in the diaspora. And I'm just saying, many I and I, you know, of what you speak, were enslaved and came here. I just want to say we need the man we can't read, we can't plant food. We need the intelligent ones, them, the academias, etc., because we are suffering now because of these bright university scholars.
No, you're confusing the issue, my dear. You're confusing the issue. A man who can plant food is an intelligent man.
Well,
he might not be able to read a book, but that don't make him unintelligent. He's an extremely intelligent man.
Well,
may I say?
Them not rate. No. You might.
Let us not talk about them. Let us talk about I and I. I and I have a totally different concept of the human, right? More than them. So let us leave them out of the picture and deal with I and I. Well, I and I concept of the intelligent man is a man who comes to the table with something to offer, to maintain himself and to add value to the society in which he lives. That is the intelligent man. He doesn't necessarily have to be able to read a book, because the way in which the society was constructed, they ensure that there are a number of us who never got the opportunity to be able to access a book. Or when we get the opportunity to access a book, it was so rigorous and so tedious on us that we couldn't access it the proper way. So we're not talking about the ability to read a book. We're talking about the ability to sustain oneself.
Well, we give thanks for common sense, and I just said the head can't do without the foot or the hand, you know.
I'm sorry, we have to call that. This is not Esther, is it? Esther?
Bless
no? Is this Empress Esther?
Yes, Empress.
Oh, greetings, my sister. How you doing?
Good enough.
Yeah, I know this is something that you want to be involved in on many levels. So make we get it right, get more information, and deal with it again.
Give that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And you can't pronounce it. We don't you can't see.
All right, as we continue to take your telephone calls. Wow, we've got just 9 minutes left in the program. Let's see if we can squeeze in 2 and then wrap this. 974. All right, let's go. Hotep?
Hotep.
Hey, Hotep, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I love what's happening. They're attempting as Rastafari to move towards a solid foundation in like a village. Even though we have had the Rastafari village and we have had other ideas, we want to make sure that the Rastafari nation begin to make nation-building moves. I mean, things that are helping the whole collective of Rastafari, and that's got to be the root of whatever we're doing as Rastafari across the globe. But first, we have to be pro.
Are we losing you there? All right, I think we lost him. David? All right. I think we lost him there. Shamar, let's take one final one. We can do a final call. All right. So the questions that are being raised, and especially regarding the preparation of ourselves for repatriation. Let me take this and come back to that question. Haughton?
Haughton?
Yes, greetings.
Yes, Andrea, morning.
Hey, how you doing?
Blessing to the crew.
Yeah, man.
And your guest.
Yeah, give thanks. We're hardly hearing you though. You sound very low.
Well, voice kind of stay away this morning.
Okay.
Well, what I want to just endorse is that the principle that I'm coming with is a cornerstone. But ideas is all around the world right now that is need to incorporate also. And if you can check out Michael telling me on the Ubuntu principle, I think it will be a very great asset to a greater, better understanding of setting up such principles.
It already sounds like Ubuntu, doesn't it? It is what it is.
Yes, it's a
I am because
it's a part when it comes to the energy.
Yes.
A key element.
Yes.
The cornerstone of a village. You know?
Yes, brethren, we give thanks for that thing, right? Because energy really is really the source of the power which can drive your economy.
Yes, right? And both that energy of the spirit and energy of electricity.
Yes, the physical energy which you need to tap into to create your industries and to make life that much more comfortable for yourself.
Right? You see, right now, the brethren named Michael tells you come to a very crucial and great principle and that Ubuntu vibration.
Yeah.
See me I say?
Yes.
I want you to check it out, yes sir?
Yes, brethren. Because we open for knowledge, you know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we open for knowledge.
That's an endless vibration.
Yes, brethren. Yes, brethren, fully.
All right, thanks for calling. Thanks so much for calling. All right, we have to wrap the calls here, but I want you just to reiterate, and especially the for December 10, because it's something that's open to the public, to everybody,
to everyone,
and just remind us of what the day will look like on December 10. It starts at 11 o'clock.
It starts at 11. We have a blessing to begin with by the Rastafari community there. Then we'll present the product itself. After presenting, what we'll do, we'll have a tour to show you exactly what we're talking about and what we aim to do, where we aim to do it at. We're going to give you a tour of it, and at the end of the day...
A tour of what?
The property.
The property.
Itself, the land itself. And at the end of the day, again, we'll have a groundation by the Nabingi community again.
Really, Profile look like we're going to St. Thomas, you know?
Yes, Profile. That would be good. We welcome. We really would welcome. And if you could broadcast from there, it would be even better.
Well, it's Thursday. So, we don't Muta should broadcast, but Muta is not here. But anyway, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. I'm sure we'll find a way. Thank you so much. Any final words? Because we have just 2 minutes in this. Any final thing you want to say to the listeners in terms of ensuring that they understand in the shortest possible time what this is?
Well, what this really is all about, you know, is consolidating what we call the real power of the people, where they will take their power in their own hands, right? And move from the stage of being led to becoming leaders. We must remember that a nation of sheep always beget the leadership of wolves.
Yes.
If we cease to be sheep, it ought to be, right? Then definitely that is one way of preventing the leadership of wolves. Right, so this thing is about
that's my jingle, yeah.
Creating creating leaders of our people and not followers. And in other words, sheep need to be dyed in either orange or green. Now, we don't need any sheep. We have enough sheep. We need more leaders now, where the people see themselves as leaders. And they can only see themselves as leaders if we make them sustainable, viable economic entities. And that's what it's all about. It's about making each individual human being a viable economic entity. Thereby, the entire economy in which we live become even more viable, because all of us are viable economic units.
It also has to do with putting us all in a position where our human rights, the human rights, the natural rights that we born and grow into, cannot be trampled with impunity. That means that they look at us and wouldn't dare go and do us what they would do if we do not have the kind of power. So let's put ourselves in the position to be able to protect ourselves and protect the general community at large also.
And just to conclude on that, to say that the economically powerful have no fear about their human rights, you know. Nobody, they have no bother about them human rights, you know. The economically powerful people.
That is true, Courtney. And you're saying the foundation has to be
the economic viability of our people.
We're going to leave it at that. I'm quite sure that you have been, as I am, blown over by this. This is a project I think that we should all be part of, and we'll be reaching out from time to time. We'll also keep people updated as to where we are, what's happening with the project, and where you can come in. In the meantime, though, on Thursday, December 10 at 11 a.m., it is St. Thomas, Stonygut, the original Stonygut at the Nyabingi Center, so we can get some more information on this, tour the property and so on, and hear more of the plan. So especially the community, the St. Thomas community, be there. Wherever you are in Jamaica, Rastafari, be there. I think this is relevant to all Pan-African, Rastafari, African-centered people. Let us be there. All right? Thank you so much.
Perfect love.
We give thanks.
Nicodia and Courtney. Walk good and tell him other one howdy.
Truly.
Just a minute before 10 o'clock. All right, so we don't have time for the bottom line today, but suffice to say, the bottom line was about to focus on settlement colonialism and an understanding that is needed among us as a people that China's engagement with Jamaica is looking very much like China's engagement with the continent of Africa. How do we leverage China-Jamaica relations? What good? Tell him other one howdy. We'll see you next week, inshallah. God willing.
To the lion, one who reigned from Mount Zion. He pledged allegiance to the lion, one who reigned from Mount Zion. He pledged allegiance to the lion, one who reigned from Mount Zion. He pledged allegiance to the lion. The first, and have been mocked and jeered to use the word I. For you mock and you jeer I, and you persecute I, and you fight against I. For you know not I. You can't spell life, and you can't pronounce time. Without eye you can't see, and if you know eye you love. You shouldn't I bingy I Rastafari I Say la say I